right, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. This is our next official live show. It's close enough to 7 o'clock, I'm not really worried about it. So let's rehash real quick so everybody here is familiar with what's going on. But first of all, introductions, please.
My name's Russell.
Bree. Misty.
And you know me.
Unfortunately.
I'm the nerd who runs the show. So, Notes and Nerds. What it used to be was Notes was music, Nerds was nerd culture and stuff like that. Because it's just me really just doing the show.
I actually have a history of that too. So.
Since it's just me running the show, we're changing the format where music is taking more of a back seat, and the focus on the Notes section is actually going to be a play on words, if you will, in regards to like I said before, I was thinking, well, what if it was like I was taking notes and I read notes when I did my stuff? This way it's Notes Nerd. Lame. So the next option was, who here hates food? Exactly. Who likes food? Who loves food?
Can't tell.
So the new concept basically boils down that notes would be the concept of flavor notes. When you taste food, everybody comments on the notes of the food that they're eating, like the fruity notes or the floral notes, and so on and so forth. The aromatics of the food that you're eating and the drinks that you are drinking. So, Notes and Nerds. Yet, I'm still maintaining the aspect of that retro 80s look because retro is cool, right?
Yeah.
So, that's a rehash of the premise of Notes and Nerds. I do hope you all enjoy
the three
it.
of us in this group are
big
in the, we're old. We got the pup here.
The young pup. So, I have some stuff here, some notes about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go a little double entendre with the whole notes thing here. Basically, some video game information. I want to talk about the Xbox Series X video footage that came out recently this week, or over the end of last week, actually. Plus, today, PlayStation 5 live footage of, I forgot the name of the title, I have it written here, where it's actually the Unreal 5 engine from Epic Games. It's fantastic. I will pass the tablet around so everybody can get a chance to see it. And we'll go from there. Plus TV, video news, stuff that's happening in the geek world, along with what's happening with San Diego Comic-Con. So that one's interesting to say the least. So before we get started on that, if I could have you hold that for me. We have two wines. Now, as I've said before, and if you've seen my video on my personal account today, we have received our Bright Cellar wines. As I said before in the video, it's Mulderbosch. It's a wine that's imported from South Africa. Wine of origin, coastal regions. It is a Cabernet Sauvignon, and I'm sure I'm going to get heat for saying it wrong, but it's a rosé. So we're going to try that one today.
That sounds like you said it right.
Sauvignon.
Cabernet Sauvignon.
That's what it's supposed to be. I'm just sure I'm saying it slightly wrong.
If you were saying that,
This one is Cactus Park from Paso Robles, California. Blackburn's Bell Merlot. It's cellared and bottled by Cactus Park Wines in Santa Rosa, California. Now, technically, none of this is sponsors. Even Bright Cellar is not a sponsor. However, I am going to put a comment on this video later where it will have a referral link for anybody who wants to give a shot of this out in their own collection of wines and tastings. This way, we all get a little kickback. And who knows, maybe one day Bright Cellars will be a sponsor. Who knows? It'd be cool. Eric at notesandnerds.com if you want to go that route. So which one would you guys like to start with?
let's try the Merlot.
The Merlot. Now, Merlots are a heavier kind of type of wine. A little bit more citrusy, I think would be a good way of putting it. A little heavier taste. Let's see here. There is no thing, and I don't have a proper knife. I was supposed to get a bottle opener, corkscrew from Bright Cellars, but something happened.
You forgot?
It did not come in. So,
Shame.
well, I give them a pass with the current circumstances in the world today.
Too deep like you did last
I know I went a little too deep, but it was cheap wine, so it's not a big deal.
Seems like we become too deep.
We are going to try to keep this PG, but
I promise
no
nothing.
promises.
I told you, I promise nothing, dude.
All right. Now, normally you should peel off the wrapper, but I couldn't find a good spot, and I don't have my knife on me, and I just didn't feel like doing it. Okay.
Careful.
Well, I don't want to make a mess on the carpet.
No, but you're putting a big little hole into the cork.
Don't you guys love side panel commentary on bottle opening?
The peanut gallery, you know. What kind of people we would be if we didn't give you our own commentary on this stuff.
There you go.
Ah. Ooh, smell that.
Ooh, that smells good.
Peel off the material here.
Smells like alcohol.
Good job.
All right.
How'd you get that?
If I can have your glasses, please. Now the nice thing is the other bottle, it's just a screw top, so it won't be so difficult. We're going to start off small. I do want to let everybody know that over here on Notes and Nerds on Facebook, we have put out a new shirt. It is tongue-in-cheek for our current circumstances in the world. Oh, by the way, guys, if you're waving or anything, I do apologize. I cannot see the screen as the screen on my device is facing the opposite direction, as the lens is facing us, and it's clear over there. However, I will check later and give shout-outs at the end of the video, and if possible, we'll try going from there and all that. So, I'll go ahead and pour yours.
So I can get my phone.
Give it. Oh, I got my tablet right here too. It's not like I can't pull that up. Today's charcuterie and cheese board has a variety of cheeses, just grocery store stuff, and meats. We have a smoked salmon, variety of deli meats, a garlic and tomato and basil cheese, various types of Gouda, and one that starts with an F. I can't remember the name of it. It's one of those fancy Italian words and stuff, so it is what it is. I'm not that high class society type. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. Bottoms up, folks. Ooh, very grapey. It is tart.
It is very tart.
It's so bitter.
Yeah.
It's not
Now-
bad though.
My flavor profile when it comes to wines, I'm going to have to adjust my my quiz that you take for Bright Cellars to get the type of wines they send you. I like last week we did our test pilot was with Barefoot Cellars. Very nice wines. They're not expensive. You pretty much find them in, well, around here you can find them in any liquor store, grocery store, etc. And you can get them easily. In very smooth flavor. They weren't a Merlot. I don't recall. One was a sweet red blend, and I forgot what the other one was. But that's the type of wines that I prefer. Very smooth, flavorful, not overly sweet, just the right amount of tartness. This is very tart, and that's actually kind of what I expect from a Merlot. I think this is the only Merlot I had in the box. So this is definitely going to be something, and I do apologize. Now, this is nothing against Cactus Park, because everybody has a different taste. Everybody likes different profiles. Everybody likes the way certain things taste, and I don't blame them. Everybody, it's just the way it is. For me, this is just not my type of wine.
Too bitter.
Too bitter. To be perfectly honest, I might have to step off camera after a bit to get the Barefoot, just to reiterate that one for them to try out.
I mean, it's not a bad wine at all. Am I shedding again?
No.
No. Let's say it's spring. It's about that time for us to shed. So yeah.
I just find a bit bottomed up mine just to get it out of the way. Oh, and this cork is not fun to put back in.
Of course, they usually aren't that fun to put in.
It's not.
But it's even better when you try to stick it in someone's mouth.
The problem with this cork is it's not wet. It's dry. And the sad thing is, the bottle's shipped sideways, so no excuse.
For those who know me, they should know my mind. Come on now.
So, let's go ahead and discuss one of our other topics before we dive into the other wine. Let me go ahead and bring up the Facebook app. Actually, bring up my pages manager app.
Jinxie.
I don't know if we'll be able to finish all this though.
This one, it is a tough finish. Just
I'm gonna finish it.
put it up and chug it down.
That's what I did.
That's what I'm gonna do in a second.
All right. Let's see here.
Holy hell. Oof.
So we do have a
I'm
few
not
people.
gonna touch my
Eric Lenhart, Kansas City Superman. He's a great cosplayer. Does a lot of cross-play, as we call it in the industry. Becca, a friend of mine from years ago, back in the old Yahoo chat days. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on. A lot of folks. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. So I'll go back to the app later to check in on things. Which cheese did you try?
I tried this one.
That one is the Applewood smoked.
Oh. Ooh, that's good.
It helped with the taste.
That does help with the taste.
It actually tastes a little bit better with it. So.
All right, let's get into
So
that
that
read
tastes like
later.
I licked the dog's butt. It's getting out of my mouth, so that's good.
Like I said, this isn't a bad wine. It's just bitter,
Yeah.
very tart.
It's like right. It hits you like right at the end. That applewood smoke.
Yep.
Oh, that's good.
So first off, I want to talk about, we've all heard about the X-Men spinoff that Fox was doing back in 2017, the New Mutants film. It was going to be, where Fox was getting really interesting, where the X-Men films, they were totally screwing up. Just plain and simple, screwing them up every time we turn around. Dark Phoenix, anybody? They screwed it up twice. Bad. So they decided, like Deadpool was an experiment in how far they go with the foul language and, making it more adult-oriented. Then comes Logan, which really pushed that envelope again, where it wasn't just adult humor, but it was also in, adult drama. It didn't feel like a comic book superhero film because of the aspect that it had going for it. Whereas the New Mutants was going to be pushed as a horror film. And then, of course, there was all the reshoots. And they kept reshooting it and redoing it. The movie was supposed to be released early in 2018. Here we are in 2020. It was supposed to be released in April. But welcome to 2020. It hates you. It's getting pushed to August. And here's the real kicker. The date push is understandable. I kind of wish Disney would just say, screw it, and put it on Hulu and get it over with. Because we all want to see the movie sometime before we all die from, things. 2020 ain't over yet. Cthulhu is still coming. Everything that was reshot is pointless now. They're going to re-release. They're going to release the film as it was originally shot.
Then what was the whole point of the reshoots then?
Exactly. That's what everybody's wondering. The thing is from what I have to speculate. The whole idea for the reshoots was more or less just because they really wanted to push Dark Phoenix as more of that adult, but not adult, because they're still going with that teen party CW aspect of it all. The the free flow, free form, whatever that station is, the wannabe CW. I'm not a fan of that channel. It's just really bad. Sorry, guys. But anyway, they're really trying to push that into that teen drama horror aspect with the whole Dark Phoenix aspect. It flopped. And of course, they try to put it out at the same time as Captain Marvel. That was a bad idea. Way to go, Fox. Of course, who am I thumb upping now? Because Fox don't exist. Oh! So Disney they want to put this out, but it's just, I think Disney actually liked I'm going to have to assume Disney appreciated the original content way more than the newer stuff. Those smaller chips are actually gluten-free. They are rice chips. And they are tasty.
Yeah.
We're not gluten-free addicts or anything like that. My mom actually has celiac disease, folks. So we do try to do all the different things with different types of food. I already split those so they're all situated. So yeah, New Mutants comes out in August. They're going back to the original test audience release from 2017. I'm still looking forward to it. It's just going to be really weird to see certain actors and actresses like Maisie Williams. I think that was her name. Game of Thrones. Arya Stark. We're going to see her way, way younger than what she was in the last season of Game of Thrones. So it's going to be really weird to go back and see that scene. So one more bit of news. We'll go to the gaming news. Who here has played Fallout 76? Yeah. I wouldn't drop money on that game. But guess what? This weekend on Xbox One, PS4, and PC, it's free play weekend. So if you're interested in trying out, who knows, maybe this could be one of those, they just put out an expansion pack. A lot of fixes have been made. The game, according to a lot of people, works. Maybe now is the time to jump in. Maybe it'll become a free-to-play, except, like does like WoW in some cases where you pay for certain points and then go from there. A lot of MMOs are doing that because nobody can compete with WoW. But yeah, this weekend, I'm actually thinking about it. I might give it a shot, see what the game is like. I'm not a big MMO fan. Are you guys willing to try it?
I mean, no.
Never really was a Fallout fan, to be honest with you.
I love their character creation stuff, but I don't know. It's just one of those games that it's hard to get into. I mean, we're already at the point where Fallout might be a reality. I don't know.
We're getting close.
Getting
God,
there.
I hope not.
Well, we already got the Murder Hornets this month. What are we getting next month?
I don't want to even think about it. There's a meme going around where the dude's looking at the screen. He's like, ah. And then the next shot is him like, oh. And it's like 12/31/2020, 11:59 p.m. And then it shows 13/1/2020. There is no 13th month. We don't joke about that here. 2020 has to end sometime. Because our luck, it won't.
Another probably thing I like to add in as far as the gaming news go is new chapter of Dead by Daylight coming up. The devs did announce a new character, well, not quite character, but a killer, licensed killer, mind you, with the the new map, new survivor, whatnot, and well, you can tell for the pictures will be for the 4th anniversary of Dead by Daylight, which will launch on May 26th, I do believe. By the picture, if you guys go ahead and check it out real quick, it's a black skull with gold all over with gold teeth, and I'm guessing it's black blood coming out of the eye sockets. So it's kind of hard to guess as to what
Who their
licensed killer might be, but I'm I'm waiting for it. I think it'd be awesome. I can't wait for it.
That's one of those games it's free to play on the Xbox Game Pass.
Yes, it is.
I should be playing it or should be trying it.
And
But
I do believe we actually talked to you about this before.
I had it installed until recently, and I had to uninstall it because I was doing some rearranging on my stuff. But I need to put it back on there. I need to give it a shot and go from there, because it's really cool that they have all these different characters, including, like you said, licensed serial killer characters, slasher characters from the movies. So I'll give it a shot, and we'll go from there.
Please do.
Because it is online play, right?
Yes.
There we go.
On top of that, I mean, I also belong to a gaming community on Facebook, which is for Dead by Daylight, and a lot of people are saying Candyman or Chucky.
When it comes to okay, first of all, that's two questions. Which Candyman and which Chucky?
Candyman, which I do believe, like
The original.
the original Candyman from the first movie.
3, 4 movies, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen trailers for the new one that's already out or coming out. I don't remember, because right now everything's kind of been hitting with limbo because of the issue of theaters. I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
I know everybody's on board as Jordan Peele, yeah, and I'm not going to doubt one bit. He's got great stuff. He put out great stuff, but some of his stuff that he's doing rehashes of is a little derivative, and I'm not a big, I understand we got to re-up and readjust and redo things to meet the new standards and stuff like that, but I really don't like calling a movie a thing, like Candyman, but it doesn't follow the original premise of the character. You are literally you're creating something entirely new and slapping on an old name to cash in. Kind of like how Chucky was not Chucky in the new Child's Play. Granted, it was great hearing Mark Hamill's voice, but it was Mark Hamill's voice that he does for a lot of his villain characters. No slamming on him. I think he's great. He's my Joker. But at the same time, Chucky sounded like Joker. His version of the villain from The Flash, the Trickster. He was a dollar store. He was a dollar store version of Joker. So it's just kind of one of those things where Child's Play just didn't do it for me.
Well, that's another thing about they're guessing it's Chucky from Child's Play, but the argument I gotta have on that is he's a doll. How the hell is he gonna pick somebody up and put him on a damn hook? I'd like to know. How's it possible?
Oh, is that how you win the game? Or win a match? Like, is there certain requirements to?
Well, for when you're a killer, I mean, you can edit on this too, because you play killer more than I do. I'm mainly survivor.
As a killer,
That sounds like a kink.
As a killer, you're meant to down the characters before they can complete generators, and then you hang them on meat hooks to sacrifice them
To the entity.
I'm sure they'll reroute something to make it work.
Not with Chucky if he's.
Well, I'm saying, like, unless they put the hooks down low for that character,
Yeah,
and then you just wheel them up like a piece of beef, just hook it and then.
I don't see that happening.
It's a game, and based off of a wackadoodle franchise. So I mean, anything makes sense with the character.
Although I do, if you guys are listening, I do have an idea for a perk. I do. It's called the FU. If you are the last survivor, and you know how you got some killers that like to face camp you right before you're sacrificed or whatever. When you're the last survivor and you got the killer standing right in front of you, the perk will activate. What you do is right before you're sacrificed, you give that killer a big freaking kick in the face right before you go. I think that would be perfect for those that face camp you.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next wine. If you saw that, you didn't see me make an accident. This is why you always tilt your glass and put, this way you don't do that. Yes, we should be cleaning these out between wines, but we'll live. I'm not adding as much this go around just because I honestly have never had a rosé.
You're actually not that bad.
So here we go. One of the big reasons why I've never drank wines as much is because around here everybody thinks Merlot is the way to go, and it's not.
This actually has a bit of a sweeter smell.
It does. All right, let's go. not as it is tart.
Not as bad as the
Merlot.
The problem with the Merlot, it's also really dry. My mouth is dry. And my mouth is also salivating, so it's one of those weird This one's crisp. And I wouldn't say it has a bite. You see, I want to get through this glass and then try a little bit more because, like I said, we had just a little bit of that Merlot still in there. And first of all, like I said, not wine connoisseurs. We just drink wine. The problem is that, you know, everybody knows that when you mix your different alcohols, you're always going to get a residue of that previous one, and it's going to carry over to the next one. And if you had a powerful flavored alcohol prior, it is going to be a major impact on your drink afterwards. So in this case, very tart, very strong Merlot with a lighter Cabernet Sauvignon Rosé. It does affect it, and cheese does not exactly help either with the dryness. So far,
Not bad.
this one,
Still bitter.
ooh,
big difference with the salmon, or
mixing the salmon with the rosé balances out. Now I do like cooking with wine, and I could see myself using this rosé with the salmon as a balancing act. The tartness, the citrusy flavor of the rosé with the salmon, I think really balances it out. It's like adding lemon to your fish. I think it would really make a difference.
which one's the Gouda?
These are
These two?
Goudas. That's a Gouda.
That's actually
I
pretty good.
think that was a Gouda, but I don't remember.
I'll try this one.
This is a bacon Gouda. This one is strawberry. Might not be Gouda. I don't remember.
It's got a weird ass smell to it. Reminds me of a.
Sharp Gouda. That's what it is. It's very sharp.
Smells very familiar though. It's almost like I'm smelling drywall.
Once you try it, it's different. It's got a nutty accent to it. Very dry, sharp. It's a sharp. It has a weird aftertaste.
It does.
Kind of. It tastes like rotting milk, which is what cheese is.
It's almost like a really. It's like a dollar store version of string cheese.
That's been sitting
That's
out
what
for a
it-
little long.
yeah, that's what it
got
tastes
dried
like.
out a little bit.
That's what it tastes like.
It's like in the middle of summer, you see your kids out there with the string cheese, and they accidentally forgot it and left it there all day, and it dried out. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this a shot again now that I've kind of.
I can't eat this. I can't eat it. It's that bad.
That's one of the points of this.
Yeah,
That's
actually.
one of the big points about this show. We're not trying wines and cheeses that we like necessarily. We're finding things that we do want to eat more of. I say try this one. It sounds weird having strawberry in your Gouda, but it's Gouda.
That'll close right to smack you.
Hey, don't whine about my jokes.
Oh my God! Shut up!
Smacking for you.
He'll get smacked later. You just won't see it on
The
camera.
pressure's getting to them. I think they're cracking.
You're about to get cracked across the head.
Ooh. That's good.
That does smell good.
It tastes good too.
I think I'm gonna fish out some more of this snack right
Oh
here.
my God! Shut up! Dad puns. That's what they're called. Dad puns. Yeah.
There's no joke like a dad joke, because a dad joke don't stop. Okay.
That's actually pretty good.
After filling my mouth with different flavors and also finishing, basically cleaning out the Merlot from the previous glass, this does come through a little bit stronger. And I am definitely going to have to readjust my opinions and stuff. Like, one of the questions was what kind of milk or what kind of chocolate? Milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate, vanilla. White chocolate's not chocolate, so whatever. I think next time it is chocolate, but... And then you got vanilla. Vanilla is definitely not chocolate. White chocolate is, it goes through so many processes that it kind of is no longer... Yes, I said processes. Processes! It goes through so much processing, actually, that in my opinion, it's just not proper chocolate.
Milk chocolate and white chocolate are my favorites.
Milk chocolate is excellent. I know a lot of people, especially those who are not... I like dark chocolate, I really do. Mostly because there's a certain bitterness to it, but it's because I'm a salty versus sweet person. Whereas I know like you're a sweet versus salty. And dark chocolate is a nice balance in there. Because I know a lot of people look at American milk chocolate as trash. No matter how fancy of a name you put on it, nobody really likes it outside of America. And that's fine. I get it. Half the time it's not real chocolate. I get it.
Did you mention that this was from South Africa?
I did twice.
She did.
Yes, making sure.
So, yeah, and here's the thing. According to the labeling, and I don't really put too much into labeling because that is just, bred in marketing. It's bred into the product. You know what I mean? Not like that was not intended to be a dad joke. Stop looking at me funny. I see you looking at me funny. No.
You feel our pain right now.
Now, if we was drinking beer, I would make a bread joke. But this is not a yeast-based product. Stop looking at me. So, I don't look at the marketing on the label because it says that it's an iconic, widely considered one of the South Africa's iconic wineries and so on and so forth. Which is the same as saying that Foster's is an iconic Australian beer. But when I was in the Marine Corps and I served a little time with the Australian military doing a cross-promotional training opportunity in Hawaii, they looked at some of the guys going like, yeah, Foster's, man, we love it. And they're like, you stupid.
So.
Because Foster's is Australian for crap. That's what they say. Little more colorful language, but that's what they say. And I've had Foster's, and I am inclined to agree.
Never had it. I don't think I ever want to try it. Yeah.
So, my opinion with Mulderbosch, with fish, it's a good wine. With fish. There, like I said, the citrusiness of the rosé with like the salmon, it's like having lemon on your salmon. The Merlot, way too tart. Not a fan.
But what would you say would pair up good with the Merlot?
Something I can no longer eat.
The apple would.
With the cheese, with what's on the platter, I didn't try it with any of those over there, but Merlot is just one of those that I generally don't care for. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to put up with. But I do know that if you cook Merlot with like a red meat, like steak, you do get a good balance there. Unfortunately, I have to cut back on my red meats, so Merlot is a total no-go.
I saw that. That sucks.
Yeah. And note, for those who are going to comment below, I have not been bitten by a tick that is causing a protein issue with digesting and identifying red meats in my system, because I can also eat pork just fine for the most part. I can eat fish just fine, and I can eat chicken. And if you get bit by this tick, it's not just beef; it's pretty much red meats in general. And yeah, so. But I can eat cheese. Which is kind of a weird one for you.
You can cut it too.
So, what did you think of the strawberry cheese?
That's actually pretty good. I'm actually quite surprised. I've never been one with having fruit mixed in with cheese itself, But
you grow up in the Midwest and you go to your family reunions. There's always that one moron, family member, that brings cottage cheese and peaches.
Hey, I like that combo.
Or my worst favorite, green Jello with pears and some kind of and cottage cheese.
Okay, no, I never had that.
Maybe it's a German thing. I don't really know. It's definitely a hangover or a carryover from the 60s. Back in the 50s and 60s, gelatin was made into a big, ooh, that's the food everybody's got to eat kind of thing, because, we've figured out how to make gelatin from cow carcasses and bones. Yes, kids, that's how it's made.
Wait, burst through a bubble there.
And all these wonderful things were tried. That's one of them. And that's one of them they should have not carried over into the future. Because I remember going to my grandmother's when I was a child, and let me guess, the strawberry Gouda with the wine.
It actually cuts down the tartness on it. That's very
To
good.
give you guys an insight into the strawberry Gouda, it's almost like a strawberry, what's the kind of wine that uses strawberry I'm thinking of here? Like a strawberry wine kind of flavor. Just go as simple as I can. Like, think of it this way. We discussed this on the first episode, Boone's Farm. It's kind of like having a little Boone's Farm mixed in with the flavor. The Gouda is a creamy, smooth, sweet, flavorful cheese. It's very tasty. And then you get that strawberry sweetness in there. It's not overpoweringly sweet because it's still got that hint of savoriness to it. And here's the thing. I really like the bacon Gouda as well. This one, it's bacon.
Gotta have bacon. Bacon makes everything better.
And what's great is if you tear into the cheese where there's a piece of bacon, that's just a hunk of fat right there. Bacon fat.
Well, fat usually has the most flavor.
But the point is, it's not bacon bits.
It's bacon fat.
It's actual bacon. All right, so
Don't spit in my wine.
I still want to drink more wine. So what I'm going to do, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to take a few moments. You guys can talk amongst yourself, introduce and talk to the camera a little bit. I'm going to go change back to last week's wines, the Barefoot, because I really don't want to open up the other two bottles, or because I have 4 other bottles, but I want to spread those out.
Spread
them out.
Spread them out.
Spread them out.
Spread them.
I'm channeling my Sean Connery there. I want to spread them out a little bit, so we can have different types of wines in the future. So I'm going to go get the Barefoot, and we're going to enjoy those with this.
Hey, you're the one's got to live with them, so.
And I shoot myself.
They're not bad, guys. They're just not my type.
Yeah. Oh, the rosé wasn't bad at all.
It wasn't.
No.
I agree.
So yeah.
Still too bitter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just weird seeing us on.
I'm not a wine guy though.
No, you're more like a.
I prefer
You're
vodka.
you're a vodka guy. You're a
Vodka and
you're a
whiskey.
white Russian guy.
There's so
Well,
much
vodka
lemon
and
to it.
whiskey.
Yes, we've enjoyed these since the first
I
episode.
haven't. You have.
Ew, sangria. Nice.
Oh yes, that's what it was, a sangria. Let's go ahead and hit the sangria, folks.
Let me finish this one first.
Oh, as far as the Dead by Daylight thing goes, guys, please let me know what you think. Just go check it out. Let me know who you think the killer might be, because I have no damn clue.
Comment below.
Help me figure it out, please. Thank you.
Comment below. That's yours.
That's first. Mine right
No,
there.
that's it. I got mine right here. I'm good.
Smells a little
I'll give you the rest of that.
fruitier, a little bit.
Eric and I gotta get a little wine fridge. So we can keep our wine.
This is the sangria. I did like this one a lot. It is a very fruity, very smooth. Has just a little crispness
You can
to it.
smell it, actually.
Yeah, it's
so,
actually
yeah.
But it's nowhere near as tart or as potent as the Merlot or even that rosé.
Yeah.
Just tastes like a heightened up grape juice.
Yeah, but it doesn't have. It's not that.
Good, isn't
It's
it?
not cheap. Like I said, it's not. It doesn't have a cheap flavor. When I say cheap, I mean like crap, like Boone's Farm. It has.
Hey!
I'm not knocking Boone's Farm as
We
bad.
like Boone's Farm.
Boone's Farm has its purpose. And you want to have a bunch of people over, and y'all want to get drunk, and you want to drink wine.
Grandma! Yeah, Grandma.
I just look at it, it's alcoholic Kool-Aid. This is actual wine. This is real wine. It's good. I like it. It's tasteful.
Alcoholic Kool-Aid.
It's alcoholic Kool-Aid. Straight up.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
I definitely like the taste of this one. This is actually pretty well.
You guys can all fight over this. I've got my share of the sweet red.
Is it kind of like, because you tasted the St. James Winery Velvet Red, haven't you?
I don't remember.
Because if it's anything like that one, I actually got a bottle of that. Actually, I'll bring that next time. Yeah, the St. James Winery Velvet Red. That's some good stuff.
Now, I do have a friend in down near Wichita. Sorry, I don't remember the town's name off the top of my head. I'm not thinking properly. Little Beard has a winery. I'm going to get in touch with him. If you're watching, go ahead and comment below so I can get going for that. He's got a winery and a brewery or whatever, and I want to try his drinks. Hey guys, remember Thursday nights, tomorrow night is New Brew Thursday, where he hosts. Well, I don't know if he's doing it tomorrow. A lot of things been going on with him as well, so everybody who I'm friends with is friends with him for the most part, knows what he's been going through, so I don't know if he's going to have an episode. It's garlic and tomato basil, sun-roasted tomato basil. I don't know what the cheese actually is. It's just labeled with the flavoring.
And also,
Once you get to the crush,
Park City.
the tomato
Park City
hits you.
Library.
Ooh.
Is that good?
Yeah, I got it. Talk
It's
about
It's not bad. I mean, if you put it on like a,
cracker.
no, I'm almost like a pizza, artisan pizza, shredded up, it'd be great. So, could I get, ooh. I'm sorry, I love the Barefoot. It is good stuff.
It is.
Go back into some more news here in a little bit, guys. First off, if you want to help support Notes and Nerds, please go to our Patreon at patreon.com/notesandnerds, where you can give a little to get a lot back. $1 starting tier, and we go up to, I think, $25 or $50 right now. I am thinking about cutting down a couple of those simply because I don't really need them, but every little bit does count. Also, if you want to help us out, go to shop.notesandnerds.com, where you can buy t-shirts like this bad boy right here, and helps show your support wherever you're going, especially at all the cons, festivals, and all the other good stuff that I also attend. There's also our new one, where if you go to our Facebook page and our Twitter and look for the link to our social distancing program, I am selling a shirt that literally says social distancing. If I can kick you, if you are too close, I can kick you. I'm selling these shirts at minimal profit. However, I am going to say at 50% of all profits, because I mean, Teespring gets their cut, then I get whatever's left over. 50% of that will be donated to all the frontline workers during the COVID-19 experience right now. So please go there to Facebook or Twitter, find the link, purchase a shirt. I got t-shirts, I got long sleeve shirts, I got hoodies, sweatshirts, whatever, and they come in multiple colors, so your choice. So this way, if you don't feel like being a butt and saying, hey, back off 6 feet, just let them read the shirt. And if they don't know how to read, just kick them.
It'd be awesome if you had a face mask to match that too.
They don't sell those.
Ah, damn it.
I thought about it.
Hate face mask.
Oh,
I had to wear my work, and I
that's
hate it.
necessary.
So,
Right.
also, if you want to help support the channel, sometimes just going and being a subscriber or a follower of all of our social medias, such as youtube.com/notesnerds, click on that subscribe button. This video, which is currently live on Facebook right now on the 13th of May, 2020, which is a Wednesday, it will be on YouTube tomorrow or sometime within the next couple of days. So it won't be live there or here, wherever you're watching it. So yeah, just hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, hit that like button, whatever you hit, it will help us out. Tumblr, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, just either /Notes and Nerds or Notes and Nerds before, like Tumblr. And then, of course, notesnerds.com. So, newsy news is the news that's always new. We all remember the original, or the prequel trilogy for Star Wars. I have to say, in retrospect, it wasn't as bad as we all made it out to be. I will go on that. Because I like the new trilogy, the sequel trilogy, except for one movie. Ryan Johnson. I like a lot of the elements that Ryan Johnson incorporated into The Last Jedi. However, I am not a fan of his execution and complete ignoring of whatever J.J. Abrams was trying to establish in his films. So there is that. So like I said, there are aspects of The Last Jedi I like, but for the most part I don't like how he did not carry on the proper story. Off of that tangent, prequel trilogy. The guy who played Boba Fett, who was basically Jango Fett, the father of all the clones and such, he is going to be in The Mandalorian, Season 2. He will be played by, let's see here, Daniel Logan. He is the father of Boba Fett. His character was Jango Fett, father of Boba, who was unaltered at the time. Now, if you all remember, in Return of the Jedi, Boba Fett was basically fed to the Sarlacc pit. I preferred the original Sarlacc pit, not the one with the stupid little beak that popped out.
The bunghole thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in Legends canon, the old canon before Disney, Boba Fett, in one of the short stories or even a full novel, I don't remember which one it was either Tales from Mos Eisley or so on and so forth. He used his jetpack, to blow a hole in the side of the Sarlacc pit and dug his way out of the creature and survived. Because, quite honestly, the character had potential to be a real badass character in Star Wars canon. But for some reason, he was a throwaway character. Because if you remember the Christmas special, there was an animated segment that had Boba Fett in it, and Boba Fett was actually really impressive. That was our first introduction to the character. And quite honestly, there is the stories or rumors, and I don't remember if it was made canon or not, that it was Boba Fett that fried Aunt and Uncle Lars and Beru on Tatooine. Remember that scene in The New Hope when Luke pulls up to the farm after they find the sand crawler and all the dead Jawas? And I didn't see it when I was a kid because it's just real fast, but later iterations, they kind of extended it feels like. There's 2 burnt, crispy corpses. Mm-hmm. Burnt and crispy corpses in Star Wars. I have a greater appreciation for those films when I got older. It's like, yes! Poor Luke. Yes! Crispy critters. Well, anyway, remember in the scene in Empire where Vader goes up to Boba Fett? No disintegrations. Aunt and Uncle Lars.
I thought his name was Owen.
Owen,
Uncle
Lars.
Owen,
Lars was the
Beru.
last name. Sorry. I'm having a moment of too much wine. I'm a lightweight, folks. I could suddenly get really belligerent. Anyway, back to the point. Boba Fett survived Return of the Jedi and is going to be in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. I've lost all control of myself here, folks. Next thing you know, I'm going to be running around screaming about the murder hornets.
Please don't. Yeah.
I want one as a pet.
No.
Are you nuts?
Just a little, but yeah. I want one.
Never mind.
No.
I want to get a little baby leash for it. Let it fly around. I'll keep a fly swatter on hand, like, bah! Train it. Make it do tricks. Go after certain people.
What the hell?
Wow, you're a strange one.
Yeah, but you love him though.
Yeah. I do.
That or I get a tarantula hawk. You know what those are?
You're watching too much Brave Wilderness, haven't you?
2 inches long, native all across. Anywhere you can find spiders, you'll find a tarantula hawk for the most part. They're pretty common in the United States Southwest. They're about 2 inches. iridescent in color, really pretty. They don't. The big thing you can tell the difference between one of these versus a murder hornet, and I know what they really are called. I just love the term murder hornet. That's freaking cool. They're not buff daddy kind of hornets. I mean, everybody needs to remember murder hornets. Think of them as the buff daddies of the hornet world, whereas everything else is proportionate. Murder hornets are just freaking huge in every aspect. Their heads are big, their claws are big, their butts are big. They're big.
We get it, they're big.
Buff daddies. So, and these things are iridescent. They kill spiders. And the way they kill spiders is, have you ever seen Alien or Aliens? Yeah. They sting it. They sting a tarantula or spider, paralyze it, drag it to its nest, drop an egg on it, egg hatches, burrows into the spider, eats its internals while it's alive, then pops out. Hello world, I'm here! And then continues the cycle of murdering tarantulas and spiders.
You ever seen a cow killer?
Brave Wilderness.
No, actually seen.
No, I've never seen one, and I don't really want to.
Those things are actually kind of cool.
They are, but again, I've watched enough Brave Wilderness to know that there are certain ones that I do want to stay away from. I mean, with a tarantula hawk, if it stings you, 5 minutes of pain, and some numbness, and then some aches and groans from there. But anyway, Jango
comes
Fett,
with old age, are you
Boba
kidding
Fett.
me?
So that's one Star Wars. Have you guys seen The Mandalorian yet?
No.
Shame on you.
I am not a big Star Wars fan. You know this.
I know.
Shut up.
Not everybody's perfect. So anyway, Mandalorian Season 2, Boba Fett, it's really cool. And the fact that they're bringing back the original actor who played Jango from the original trilogy, who is supposed to be Boba Fett, even though it was a completely different actor throughout the original films, because, you know, the guy who played Jango Fett and the clones in the prequel trilogy would have been probably a small child at the time in the 70s, early 80s. So that's going to be exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. And we just found out yesterday or the day before, we found out that Ahsoka Tano is going to make her appearance in the Mandalorian. I don't know if you've seen any of the animated shows or not for Star Wars. Ahsoka Tano. God, I hate some Star Wars names just irk me. They just throw letters at the fridge, little magnet letters, and throw them at the fridge. Whatever stays there, there's your name.
I bet that's how they got Jar Jar Binks.
We won't.
We won't talk about Jar Jar Binks.
We will in a second. I love a theory about him. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it
open
again.
up my big mouth.
But anyway,
Damn it.
Katee Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica fame is going to be in The Mandalorian playing Bo-Katan Kryze. She is a Mandalorian. The reason why this is really cool is because her character gives the Darksaber to her sister in Star Wars Rebels. And at the end of Mandalorian, and I don't care if this is a spoiler for some of you or not, The Mandalorian has been out for months now, and we're in a lockdown, so if you haven't watched it yet, that's your problem. The bad guy at the end of The Mandalorian has the Darksaber, and that's pretty cool. So how did he get it? Hopefully we're going to find out through this. So that's all really about the Mandalorian kind of news. So you guys aren't really Star Wars fans, so I can't really talk about the animated Clone Wars that was made by the same guy. I'm not even... Genndy Tartakovsky.
He's the same guy.
You know where I'm going with that?
He's the same guy who did Dexter's Laboratory.
Nope. Well, I was going to more reference something everybody really references him to is Samurai Jack.
Yeah, that too.
That's the one he gets most recognized for because everybody loves Samurai Jack. Dexter's Laboratory, it was great. It was fun, but it just doesn't have the same recognizability as Samurai Jack, I think, for the mainstream audiences, because Dexter's Laboratory felt too kiddie. But Samurai Jack was definitely something that was aimed at, I guess we'll say, mature audiences.
Mhm.
So
I always preferred Samurai Jack over Dexter's Lab, even when I was a kid.
I have it on DVD. You can tell somebody's a dad when it comes into play. So
That or
I really am upset though. I loved the animated Clone Wars cartoon that came out before episode 3 in the prequel trilogy. One of the biggest problems though that I always had is we haven't seen anything rehashed. Even the final season of Clone Wars did not touch on this. If you remember episode 3, which you guys did you ever see it? Episode 3?
I watched
Revenge of the
episode 3.
Sith. The beginning of the film, for those who don't remember, shows Palpatine was kidnapped, and we're introduced to General Grievous, and he's clutching his heart. You can tell he's been in a battle, but we don't know about the battle except for the crawl at the beginning. The last episode of the Clone Wars cartoon series from way back in the 90s literally leads into that. It literally tells us what happened. And it's not canon anymore. You can't even find it on Amazon. You can't find it except for used copies. I have a copy of it, thankfully. Gotta find it. But it's one of those films that it has so much going into the next movie that just getting dropped made no sense. And it wasn't one of those lame cartoons. It actually had just as much, if not more, action than the cartoons that are being released by Disney XD and Disney and all that right now.
Well, we're in the age of lame cartoons anyway, so I mean...
Yeah, let's not talk about things like Thundercats.
Teen Titans Go.
yeah.
The only thing of Teen Titans Go that I like, well, there's two things. Two things. That stupid song that I can never stop listening to. And the movie.
Never saw the movie.
The movie is so redonkulous. There's even a Stan Lee cameo in it.
That doesn't surprise me.
But everybody knows it's like, okay, Stan Lee is totally Marvel, but DC is what Teen Titans are in. And it was making fun in a very, very nice, honorable way of saying Stan Lee's in every comic book movie. See? I don't
Stan Lee is an effing legend, that's why.
Pretty much. So, it was a good film. It was fun. It was stupid in the right ways, unlike the cartoon show. And I know a lot of people might be wanting to comment right now that, well, the show wasn't made for you. It kind of was made for our age group. It really was. The humor is supposed to be childish, but it also lends itself to adult humor. So, who was it made for? All right, I want to show you...
It's also amazing how they managed to sneak in adult
humor
into kids shows. Come on, people.
Here is that video for the PS5 gameplay. I want you guys to check that out. That is all run in the Unreal 5 engine on the PlayStation 5. So, if you guys haven't seen it, I'm not going to be able to show it to you here because we are live and I don't have any high-tech fancy equipment to switch video formats or video
Lumen
files.
in the land of nanite.
We should say that title again?
Lumen in the land of nanite.
There you go. Go and look on YouTube. You can find it pretty much everywhere right now. It's out there. It's phenomenal. Wait till you see. I don't know if you see it yet or saw it yet.
No, they're about to show it right now. They're
They're
trying to get through the yakety yak.
They're using that ray trace lighting effects in this, and it sounds like tech jargon marketing crap at first, but when you actually see ray tracing in action, it really sets a standard that you expect to see in the next generation of gaming consoles.
Dude's got a nice accent.
Right now what they're watching is the Epic Games trailer and a little bit of a discussion where they're talking about the engine. Epic Games is also got a pretty big hard-on for PlayStation and Sony, so some of the things that they've been saying I think is kind of silly and pure marketing jargon because both systems are very, very similar. I mean, almost not identical similar, but so similar that on paper it's really hard to know which one's really actually more powerful than the other.
Taking me back to the whole Sega versus
Nintendo shit.
Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Quite impressive so far.
I mean,
It looks the same as technology now.
it does, but it's the lighting. Like, there's
Yeah,
a
you
scene.
see all the shading and everything else right here. I mean, look at that.
But
I'm
here's
used
the
to
thing.
what it is now, though.
But a lot of the stuff you're seeing in the video tends to be done pre-rendered in cutscenes and games where that's actual gameplay. Like, they're actually controlling the character,
Yeah, I see that.
supposedly, through the environment. And the computational math to do ray tracing is outlandish. There's a scene in the video, I don't know if you've seen it yet or not, where she's transitioning from a dark hallway cavern type area exposed to a mountainside looking across a plain over a vast area. And you literally see a transition from here's the bright light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and everything around her is dark with some reflections of the light. And all of a sudden you see the light just kind of wash everything out, and then everything comes into focus, and you see the entire environment. And again, that's something that Xbox One X and a PS4 Pro aren't able to do without some slowdown or pre-rendering effects taking place. Whereas here, we're seeing it take place right here, right now, in gameplay, real time, rendered as you're playing the game. So if you step back, step forward, step back, past that little invisible threshold, if you will, you'll get that effect repeating itself. And what this whole ray tracing aspect really comes into play for is games that have accelerated time frames. Like games like Animal Crossing won't count for this because they happen in real time, but games that have like a full 24-hour time frame can take place within an hour of real time. And yeah, you get the effect of day to night, night to day kind of aspects, but it's not as pronounced. You don't get the lens flares
It's like
as much.
Like the photoreal.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is.
Because that's the other thing too. Because of ray tracing, surfaces look phenomenal. And here's the kicker. Everybody is expecting, you know, with all these teraflops these consoles are putting out in the next generation, is that we're going to see environments with billions of polygons. But here's the kicker. Bump mapping has been around for decades now, since the 90s. Bump mapping takes a texture and using a mathematical equation takes the surface. Like imagine my hand here being nothing. It's not a three-dimensional piece of art. It's literally just a flat piece of art with a texture of the hand on it. So you see my hand, but it's not really an actual physical hand. Like PlayStation graphics. Here's the character's hand, right? Well, when you apply bump mapping and you know the light source is here coming in reflecting, bump mapping uses mathematics to tell you that, okay, this section, here's a line that we're going to put into the art that the system is going to recognize as a separator and create an illusion of lighting. Whereas with texture, with these newer textures, higher texture or higher polygon counts, triangle counts, whatever, they'll be able to do more with less in some cases. So this way it fools the eyes. What really comes down to play is we're looking at graphics that are going to look as beautiful, as gorgeous as a lot of the films that are coming out. Imagine an immersive world where it's pure 3D rendered GTA, Grand Theft Auto kind of thing going. And everything in it is completely rendered, but it looks like you literally just walked out your own physical door. The Matrix has evolved.
I would say so.
But everybody's making it sound like this is this is kind of unfair for Microsoft because Sony really put something out there. And I think this is a reactionary video, if you ask me. A reactionary video in consideration of what Microsoft has been putting out news-wise with a steady flow of information. Sony threw out this big game here. The problem is, if you're not using a certain engine, like the Unreal Engine, you might not be able to put out these kind of graphics. And the licensing fees for engines like the Unreal Engine, a lot of smaller developers cannot afford that. So everybody's going to be expecting these incredible rendered environments. And if a game isn't going to deliver that, it's going to be real tough for these independent developers right off the bat. Whereas Microsoft, they're kind of showing things across the board where some games look like, oh, that looked current generation. What the heck? That's not really all that impressive. But it can be, because you got to think those teraflops, those gigaflops, or whatever, the teraflops and all that. This isn't just about rendering more polygons or triangles. This is about AI, how fast the computer opponent will think. So it gives you a much more realistic experience with enemies on screen, where it feels more like you're playing against actual players rather than just being a computer-controlled character. Think of this one too. Biggest problem with Resident Evil 5, your sidekick character. Notoriously dumb. Now imagine all those teraflops not only being used to give you great graphics, but also being used to help render smarter AI, so the character's actually helpful instead of being a hindrance. So yeah, this is a very impressive display.
Indeed it is.
Very spicy. What was that last one?
I don't remember, but there was some spicy deli meats in that.
The pepper in is pretty spicy.
That's the one I'm eating right now. Oh, you had 5, now you have 1.
Another problem I'm seeing with graphics displayed like this, Russ, your lack of enthusiasm and excitement on it is a good example of what I want to run with here. It's not meant as a slam against you in any form. It's actually just kind of pointing out some of the comments that came out regarding the Xbox One or Series X release earlier last week, or later last week. And this happened during the Game Awards towards the end of last year as well. Everybody sees these fancy graphics and they're like, well, that wasn't really all that great. That wasn't all that impressive. That didn't really do anything. It looks like current generation. Well, we have a problem. Forbes magazine did a great article on their website a few days ago where they discussed this very point. You want to check the stream real quick for me? Oh, perfect. Okay. Checking and making sure the stream's still going. So anyway, Forbes magazine made a great point about the fact that we live in a society where, in the gaming community, where back in the 90s, we went from flat 2D games to 3D. Star Fox kind of started leaning us into it. Virtual Racing on the Sega Genesis with their supporting chips that were in the cartridges. Stuff like that. 32X. When the PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and Nintendo 64 hit the market, we had amazing 3D renders and graphics on home video game consoles that were affordable. Graphics that you ended up having to spend probably close to $2,000 during the 90s on gaming PC hardware. $2,000 versus $200-300. Big difference. And even though today's standards, we have a lot of kids that look at the older games from the PlayStation era where, oh, those are so ugly. Lower cross boobs are pointy. Oh, look at the textures. They're warped and they're janky looking. Well, you know, back when I was playing PlayStation, I was blown away. I got over the janky graphics and the pointy boobies and all that stuff. It wasn't a big deal. We lived in an age where we went from flat 2D games where that was the norm and we didn't see any way we could get any better, and all of a sudden boom, 3D worlds. PlayStation 2 and Xbox and GameCube was an evolutionary step that really pushed the limit where hands, for example, like I was talking earlier about how bump mapping makes hands, where you just have a straight, flat polygon, and all of a sudden hands were like looking like they had texture, like they had grooves and stuff. Where we went from this being your character's hand to shapes that hold guns, or the guns was part of the model, to the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube era, where hands now had actual fingers that had joints, and the guns were not actually part of the character model, stuff like that. And then since then, it hasn't really been that big. Xbox 360, PS3, and I'm not going to count the Wii, because the Wii wasn't really that revolutionary, except for its, and even the Switch today is behind everybody so far graphically. But they're still innovative in various ways technologically still. But anyway, graphically, when we went from 360 to Xbox One, PS3 to PS4, I remember looking at some of the later generation Xbox 360 games and looking at early generation Xbox One games. The lighting was better, but that was really it. I've played some games that had Xbox One upgrades from the the backwards compatible games that supposedly come with some Xbox One upgrades and all that stuff. I don't have a 4K TV, so whatever. But you get to these next level, you bring these games to the next level, and I'm still going. And I go back to my 360, and I'm like, the lighting looks better. Where's the upgrades? And that's where we're stuck. We're at a point where console-wise, on your TV, you're not going to see the big differences. We are now at a point where the next few steps that we're going to see over this next generation on the Xbox Series X and the PS5 is we're going to see probably in about 4 years after their release, 2024, give or take, we're going to see a mild upgrade, like we saw with the PS4 to PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, S to X. We're going to see these small changes where a little extra memory, a little boost to the processing power, a couple extra teraflops for 8K television support. Smooth, 60 frame per second, 120 frame per second kind of stuff. That's what we're going to see. But we're not going to see these massive leaps. The real massive leaps are going to come in VR. The new Half-Life game, the Half-Life VR game, is being touted as the game that really pushes what VR should be like today. That's how good it is. We're going to see more of those because the technology is there. I remember VR back in the 90s. It was horrible. Horrible. And I'm not talking Virtual Boy. I'm talking like the actual, 3D polygon worlds, the blurry as hell, Game Boy resolution screens. They were terrible. But now we got stuff that is just phenomenal. And I think we're going to see more portability with it, where we're going to see devices like our phones are going to be able to do it better. They're going to start taking it more seriously. But on the consoles hooked up to your TV, we're going to see graphics get to a point, and once it hits this point, there really isn't going any further except with more immersion into the game, such as VR, or entire rooms where you have just like normal glasses. They look normal, but they're connected, and it's kind of like I forgot what Microsoft calls their product. It's more of a project than a product right now, where it takes the room you're in and uses augmented reality to put things in that room. Think about going outside and you're playing Resident Evil or The Walking Dead with your phone or your glasses, and your glasses are just, you can see the world around you. It's all in real time. There's no lag because it's just regular old glasses that have a special film or some kind of screen built into it you can see through, and puts in that augmented reality. That is where we're going to see things going from there, because we're no longer impressed with graphics. We aren't. Video games that we're playing on our consoles are almost as good as the 3D renders and the films that we watch on theaters. And better than the stuff that we see on most of our television shows. Like the CW, their CG stuff for Supergirl, Flash, it works for television. It would never fly for film. But in comparison to video games, the Xbox, even my One S, and you have the older version of the Xbox. You have the VCR.
Assassin's Creed Unity.
Yeah, you have the old system, one of the original releases. So I mean, graphically, there's no difference between mine and yours. It's just the internals are shrunk a little bit. The graphics just look impressive. That, in comparison to TV, it's better than what we see on TV, done in real time. We're already looking at that video for the PS5 and that game that they demonstrated with the Unreal Engine. We're already getting to a point where it's almost cinematic in appearance itself. Not just cinematic gameplay, but cinematic visuals. And that's exciting. It really is an exciting thing to see, but it's just not awe-inspiring anymore. I'm in that boat too. I look at graphics and I think, okay, that's really pretty. That looks better than the last generation a little bit.
But graphics mean squat up to story or gameplay is.
That's always true. Always going to be true. But the issue is when you're just trying to hype a console for its power, the graphics are where it's at. The audio is where it's at. Nobody cares about the story in a 30-second promo. And that's the problem. We are now at a point in our culture of gaming that we're no longer seeing massive, massive leaps forward like we have seen in the past 20 or so years. I mean, growing up with Atari all the way to today, it's mind-boggling to go from a blocky, ugly, I think it was like 8 colors total, displayed on an Atari 2600. Some games pushed the limit a little bit more because of bank switching and stuff like that, but still, the Atari 2600 required a lot of imagination to get things by. Then came the Nintendo. The NES and the Sega Master System pushed graphics to the point where we're all like, holy crap, it's so incredible looking. Granted, for all you youngsters out there, we didn't sit there and go like, oh my god, it's so realistic. No, we never did that. We knew that it still didn't look realistic. But
I think we were just happy with the fact we had the damn system.
we didn't have to that, and we didn't have to use our imagination to say, yep, that totally looks like Mario from the arcade.
Right.
Because that was a huge difference. Then we go in, like I said earlier, we go from the 8-bit to 16-bit, which basically meant sharper graphics, more colors. Still, though, a lot of the games that were in 16-bit, they like to tell us that they couldn't accomplish that in the 8-bit era. But when you think about how many games were released on Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis that were they were 16-bit arcade systems, but time and time again, we have seen some crazy homebrew guys out there that have taken games that were meant for these newer systems back then and put them on their Nintendo and the Sega console, the 8-bit consoles, and actually did it. Shows that it really didn't mean anything when it came down to the bit wars. It was literally just more colors, more sprites, and that's it. Where the real difference came is when we was able to use, processors that was fast enough, strong enough to do math on them to do 3D rendering. Because without good math and fast math, you couldn't render 3D polygons. And then since then, it's just been how many more polygons can we throw at the screen?
All right.
So, I'm really excited to see where it's going to go. And I really hate listening to commenters saying, but the graphics look so last year. First year of release titles always look slightly better than last generation. Once the developers are used to the new hardware, that's when the changes happen. And that's something I want to point out too. Xbox. Something that Sony has screwed up since the PlayStation 2. Not the PlayStation 2 itself, but everything after that. The PS1 to PS2 was an interesting change. But the thing is, PS1 compatibility was not emulated. It was because there was some emulation involved, but most of the gameplay on the PS2 from PlayStation 1 games was done using the actual processor, whereas they recycled the processor for the PlayStation 2 to handle the USB ports. That's why you have such great gameplay for PlayStation 1 on PS2. PS3 and on, emulation. PS4, none. It's PS4 only. Xbox is promoting itself not as a platform but as a service. So that's why we're seeing so many 360 games working on Xbox One. Same with some, Xbox original is emulation purely, but Xbox One to Xbox Series X, it's more about the software rather than the hardware. I think what I'm seeing here that I hope other people are seeing as well is Microsoft is going with the Windows platform kind of attitude. As long as the operating system and the drivers and the development area for like using DirectX and all that stuff for the 3D rendering, if that doesn't change, if that's still the same from system to system to system, it just means there's more power behind the software from the hardware. You can carry your games forward as long as you want, and backwards compatibility is just a no-brainer. Whereas Sony is constantly creating new operating systems for every system, and it's not. Hopefully, with the PS5, we're going to see that more forward as well, because that's something that backwards compatibility is such a weird thing. As far as the market's concerned, we are in such a disposable society that we don't care about backwards compatibility, the younger generation, but the older generation like us, we want to be able to play our Ataris on our modern TVs because CRT televisions, the old style tube TVs, are dying.
Yeah.
And nobody's making any more. I mean, I got a nice Atari collection, but I can't really play them unless it's emulation.
Emulation sites are dying too.
I want to touch on that, and I want you guys to give me a really good, solid opinion on this one. And I want comments below or above or wherever you put the comments on whatever platform you're on. Emulation, I get that with emulation you want cycle perfect or as close to cycle perfect emulation as possible. Cycle perfect means, or the cycles being emulated meaning like how the game is rendered and played on the original hardware. So if the game ran at 60 frames, you want the emulator to run at 60 frames. Super Nintendo, for example, is actually slightly faster than 60 frames per second. It's 60 point something. So like the SNES Mini, if you run that next to original hardware, you're going to notice some issues, and it causes some screen tearing and stuff like that. So in some games that can create a huge issue, especially if there's a clock involved. And it can affect timed runs and speed runs, etc. However, in the case of OG hardware versus emulation, I'm always in the notion if you can play the original hardware, do it. That's great, perfect, go for it. But in the grand scheme of things, play emulation, which then we go into the real issue I want to touch on: piracy. We look at a lot of games that do not move forward. They were released on the hardware, and that's where they are left to die. And in some cases, there are some amazing, I don't want to use an overly used term, hidden gems. And in some cases, they're not hidden at all. They're like everybody's favorite, but for some reason, nobody's carrying it forward. Nobody's bringing it to the next system or wider release on modern hardware. Do you guys think that the piracy issue for anything older than, let's go with a nice round number of 20 years, even though retro is considered 16 years and older, let's just cut it off at 20. At 20 years and older platforms and games, should piracy even be an argument?
I wouldn't say so.
I don't think it would be.
Because, I mean, I get the issue when it comes to modern games. Like, let's talk about anything released on the marketplace for Xbox. Pick an Xbox, pick a PlayStation, pick a Nintendo. If it's available either as a compilation, as a re-release, whatever, like the virtual consoles on Nintendo stuff, the compilation stuff on Nintendo or on Xbox, like the Konami collections and stuff like that, Sega collections. If it's being re-released like that, I can see an argument. But stuff that isn't being re-released, stuff that's left in the past, I really feel that it's not hurting anybody.
I mean, especially if the company itself hasn't been around.
Most people don't realize this, but most companies that develop games were bought up. Mm-hmm. They've all been absorbed somewhere along the lines. Finding where they ended up is a real challenge. But like, let's go and look at some Atari games that I have called from a company called iMagic. iMagic had the silver label with this comes up and it comes into a lip, so it's really thin lip at the top. Activision bought them out mid to late 80s. Right around the end of the 8-bit era, Activision just snatched them up because they had a lot of great titles. Demon Attack was a good title of theirs. Astro Blast, so many games. If I remember correctly, iMagic was also some former Atari and Activision employees that went over there, but I digress. That's a completely different topic. The issue being, though, that there's a lot of games that got no attention, no re-release whatsoever down the road. And I'm trying to think of one right off the top of my head, but I'm just kind of brain farting on it. But it just, everybody's like, the big issue. Piracy affects the developers, the publishers. You're stealing money right out of their pockets, man. Are you? Are you? That game was developed and published, let's go with Atari 2600. That game was developed and published anywhere between 30 and 40 years ago. For the Atari 2600. I downloaded the Atari 2600 version of Ms. Pac-Man. Is Namco Bandai actually hurting because I illegally downloaded 2600 Pac-Man or Ms. Pac-Man?
I doubt that they are, yeah.
But what about the third-party sellers? Oh, you mean the used game stores that Nintendo and Sega tried to shut down in the 90s, like Funko Land and KB Toys and all these other companies, specifically like Funko Land, which is now basically GameStop. Mm-hmm. They tried to shut those companies down because that was hurting our income. Which, you think about it, is true. Bunch of people go in, buy the new game. I'm going to be smart and I'm going to wait a week because dummies go buy the game. I worked at a GameStop and oh my god, midnight releases were fun. But it's really annoying when you see that same dipwad come in 48 hours later. I rebeat the game. I want something new. You just dropped $60 on Madden, beat it in 48 hours, and you're already ready to turn it in. Okay, well, here's your $5.
Yeah.
And then we'll put it back on the shelf and sell it for $5 less than brand new. Because why? The game was literally released 48 hours earlier. It's still technically a new game. Your copy is still frickin' pristine.
Indeed.
The only people who really complain about game trade-ins are the ones who literally just bought the game and are trying to get extra money out of it. But back to the point, If I'm illegally downloading these ROMs for games, am I really hurting Nintendo?
Not really.
Am I really hurting? And I'm not talking about, like I said, I'm not talking about Wii, Wii U, Switch, 3DS, Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS3, PS4. I'm not talking about the stuff that's been released in the last 10, 15 years. I'm talking old stuff. Early 32-bit era and older. I'm not hurting anybody. And I know that some companies do resell their stuff in these classic packages. And I'll be honest with you. I bought them. I have, I'm probably going to bury myself for this one. I have Sega Genesis stuff in emulation. But guess what I did? I went and bought a Sega Genesis Mini. So I literally just gave Sega my money still. I illegally own these games, but I also legally own these games. Or you really don't own anything. You just kind of own the privilege of being able to play those games. I have a Super Nintendo Classic. I don't have a Super Nintendo game, so that really doesn't help. But I have a Atari Flashback. I have a couple different versions of the Atari Flashback. I also own about 160 Atari 2600 games. And I also have a bunch of games in emulation. First off, all the classic Atari 2600 games I own were purchased through eBay or a video game store. Did Atari, did Namco, did Bally, did Midway, did Williams, did Activision get any of the money for those games?
No.
Maybe from the flashbacks. But the actual cartridges, no. Whoever I bought them from got 100% of the profit. 100% of the profit. Because they don't do any special licensing deals with the actual developers and publishers. It's just it's a silly argument where honestly, and here's the thing, I'm not trying to justify theft or piracy. I really am not. Because like I said, if it's something that if I own it, I own it, and I'm going to want to play it however I want to play it. I don't like the idea that we buy something and we're told that you cannot play it except for this, and oh, by the way, the method for you to be able to play it is now so obsolete you can't even play it. Congratulations, you own it though. If we would actually see a total 100% backwards compatible Netflix-style environment for gaming. If Nintendo would say, okay guys, we're going to take something like the Super Nintendo Classic and tie it in with some Wi-Fi technology, and we're going to make it so that you can literally have these games pre-installed as part of the purchase and a complete monthly subscription fee to play all of these games. That was the entire 100% library. Craptastic pieces of crap that came out, all the way up to the AAA titles that got released on the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo, the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance. All of these things on a retro console that you could just purchase, and then, like I said, you could buy the games too. Damn straight I'd look into that, as long as the prices were reasonable. If we would see a Netflix-style subscription service that lets you play 100% of all the games, I don't care. I would do it. Would I worry about emulation at that point? No. Would I worry about piracy and ROMs and bin files and ISOs? No. If we had a legitimate way to play these games, I think a lot of companies would suddenly stop seeing the need to go out and sue and shut down all these third-party company or websites that are legally doing that stuff. That's my rant on that stuff. If you was offered that opportunity, let's say it's $5 a month. for Nintendo only. You had access to every Nintendo, every single NES, Super NES, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color game ever made for $5 a
So
month.
it's including imports? Including imports?
100%. Let's say across the board, every game that was region locked is no longer region locked. Brought in some of the people from the community that created translations for these region locked games. And they put their translations into the game. Everything ever released, you had access to. $5 a month.
Hell yeah.
$10. Let's say $10 a month.
Probably through gritted teeth, maybe.
What?
Just because I'd rather own the actual piece
Yeah,
of hardware.
he's...
I agree. As a collector,
Yeah.
the idea of having a physical copy is nice, but for the prosperity issue, just to be able to say I can play that game at $10 a month, and if I look at it this way too. Let's say I have access to a Nintendo, and let's say Sega did the same thing, you know, $10 here, $10 there, and I'm able to play all these great games, and it's $10 a month for these services, and I'm still a collector. Do I really want to buy this game? I don't know. I've never played it before. Oh, I don't want to go and illegally down a ROM file to play it to find out, because it's still technically illegal. Oh, I got a service I already paid for. Hey, it's on my Switch. I want to play it real quick. Oh, crap. They want
This wouldn't
$5
be
for this
any
classic
different.
title?
Say like when we went to the Galloping Ghost, all of those you can play for $20 all day.
And you
It's
can't...
all on the original hardware,
but-
too.
And well, even with the original hardware, you still know if you want to get... But you can't use arcades as an example either, because let's say you're looking at the old Atari 2600. I want to build up my Atari 2600 collection, right? Okay, great. I go and play Pac-Man for the at the arcade. Awesome game. Classic title, Pac-Man. Pac-Man! Who doesn't know Pac-Man? I definitely got to own this for the Atari 2600.
Why?
Exactly. Have you played the 2600 version of
It's
Pac-Man?
terrible.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. You can't sit here and go like, okay, I want to go to the... Well, why don't you go to the arcade and play the game and see if you want to buy it that way for your console. Because I'm from that school of old that what you played at the arcade was not exactly going to be the game you played at home. Or let's go with something a little more modern. Strider. Sega Genesis Strider? No brainer. Get it. Strider for the Nintendo Entertainment System is not Strider that you played at the arcade. Good game. Solid, fun game. Just not the Strider that you thought you were getting. So again, having access to a title, whether it's through emulation, illegal emulation, to determine whether or not I want to purchase that title, or if I had a paid subscription service, honestly, I think I would pay for the subscription service just because it would, one, alleviate any issues, two, the possibility of being able to take it anywhere. Like I said, if you had a Nintendo Switch and it was a Nintendo service, great. So that's pretty much a rant that I am done with. And I've really covered all the news that I wanted to talk about. Kind of rehash today. We've had, out of the cheeses, point to the ones you guys like the most.
Actually, me myself, two of them. The smoked applewood
That applewood was
and
very nice.
the strawberry. I especially love the strawberry.
That's a surprise one, really.
Yeah.
I think a lot of
That's
people
really
don't think about it because, ooh, strawberry and cheese, fruit and cheese.
Yeah.
And then you have it, and it's just like, wow. It's
Yeah,
creamy,
it's
it's
like, holy
smooth,
shit.
it's
Well,
just
I still
right
have
level sweetness.
yet to try the bacon one.
Try the bacon real
It's
quick.
good.
Alright, try the regular one.
It's good.
Can't reach for this.
And this one's good. I haven't
That
tried
one,
that
that I think it's a sharp Gouda that I have right there. It tastes like rotten milk, and it's not expired. It's just it's very.
But like I said, that
flavor
reminds me of a very bad dollar store string cheese.
And it's not.
Yeah.
It is. It's not fancy store cheese. It is but it is a fancy. It's a more expensive cheese. So yeah, I do like that garlic and tomato basil. It's got a very interesting flavor. It's very creamy. It's a little potent at the rim,
Put it with a.
but
Fish and
there's some
peppers,
things you
right?
can do with it. This one here, I can't think of the name of it. It starts with an F. It's a good cheese. It's got a little nutty, kind of a grassy kind of flavor to it. You could definitely taste that it's not made to be. It's got a very strong profile to it. But that applewood and the two Goudas up here, I think are my favorites as well. The smoked Gouda, the strawberry, and that bacon. How about you, Russ?
I only tried 2, but
I'd probably put my money on that one. I'm not really a huge cheese person, to be quite honest with you.
Because like you said, you get earlier
It
before
makes
we
me
started
nauseous.
filming. Yeah.
I did.
The salmon, Marie, what'd you think?
I didn't have any. I'm not that adventurous.
it's good.
Tastes like salmon.
It's good.
And you are a sushi fan, so that helps.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we both liked it, so it's not our first time having it. The deli meats, they're deli meats. They're fancy deli meats. We got them at Aldi in a package. A little spicy, but good.
The way in one is really spicy.
Now, the fun part. The really important part of the notes aspect here.
Youth.
The wines. I did not care for the Merlot.
No.
Neither did I.
I didn't like the first 2 you brought out. The second 2 were okay.
The rosé had a tartness to it and a lot of crispness to it, but it wasn't as bad, and it pairs well with fish.
Yeah.
But that Merlot is really, really dang tart. The Barefoot, we talked about that last week, and you liked it a little bit. I still really enjoy them. It does, you guys do have the disadvantage of having it after it's been open for a week and a half.
Yeah.
So there
The
is that.
sangria itself wasn't that bad.
No.
That does remind me a lot of the Velvet Red. Although the Velvet Red is has a little bit more of a sweeter taste to it. I'll have to bring that next time.
Yeah.
So, but the rosé paired up with the strawberry Gouda.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That helps out.
Really good, yeah.
The tart and the sweet mixed together, and
Yeah.
it balances out
it
really
balanced
well.
out perfectly.
So yeah, not a fan of the Merlot. I am going to reflect that in my survey as well, because honestly, I think the fun part of the surveys after trying the various wines is I think I want to incorporate everybody's decision into my personal decision, because we're honestly all on the same level with the Merlot. It was just way too tart, way too dry for our liking.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, folks, you might try it and you might say, oh, but the Merlot is perfect. It's great. I love Merlot. And this Merlot is just the bomb biggity.
The people have different tastes.
Everybody has a different kind of flavor profile. Their palates require different sensations, and mine does not require that.
No.
And I am kind of sad that I have a lot of Sauvignon rosés in my box. I think I have 3 more. So I am definitely going to have to adjust for any future purchases. One thing I do want to do is balance out like I said, next episode is going to be the other 2 wines and one of the other 2 wines. And I think we're also going to fill in with some of the stuff we have at our local Sunmart grocery store, not a sponsor. Simply because they do have a nice selection, and it's all within a $10 or so range. So
Aldi's a nice place.
Aldi has a really nice selection of various wines as well. So we probably will be incorporating a couple different randoms from there. So also a shout out to anybody that wants to provide us with some wines for us to try out and taste and to give our opinion on. We will gladly accept your bottles to taste test here. And we will always, regardless, like I said, our opinions are based only on our personal tastes. Our dog is going crazy outside. So anyway, guys, I'm going to cut this out. Thank you guys for showing up and being a part of tonight's episode. I know I did a lot of talking. I probably did
You do
all of
a
it.
lot of talking, period.
That's my show. I gotta do the talking. If I didn't do the talking, nobody would do the talking. You'd just be watching us eat cheese and drinking wine.
And
getting
there
drunk.
goes our daughter just went by.
So, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in, and you'll see more of this over on YouTube. And don't forget, subscribe, like, follow on all the social medias, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, so on and so forth. Shop.notesandnerds.com for purchasing all of our great merchandise. And also, don't forget to go to patreon.com/notesandnerds if you want to become a patron. Help support the channel by giving a little to get a lot back. Later, guys.